Self-sabotage is something that I deal with frequently. So I wanted to talk about it, as I have many times on my podcast before, but I want to talk about it from different perspectives and angles in the ways that have worked best for me to work through my self-sabotage. And one thing that has kind of dawned on me the last little while as I continue to go through self-sabotaging tendencies, it's not something that I've completely healed. I don't think I can ever truly heal it. I think for me, and maybe other people as well, it's more about being aware of them when they crop up, because they continue to do so. But now, at this point in my life, after years of working on it, being mindful and aware, I'm more understanding of why these self-sabotaging tendencies happen and what triggers them. So one thing that I've actually realized throughout my life is that the way I see my self-sabotaging tendencies now is like my inner child throwing a tantrum. And the reason that in some cases I notice my self-sabotage happen is because my inner child is upset that they're not getting exactly what they want right now. Because of course, with anything worthwhile in life, it takes time, patience, consistency, effort, and it'll happen when it needs to happen. It won't happen immediately. And it can't happen immediately because you need to build a strong, sturdy foundation for anything to succeed in any capacity. Of course, not always. Some things do happen very quickly. Some people experience success in any area that they're looking for, immediately. And often when that does happen, it's not sustainable. It falls just as quickly. And sometimes it doesn't either. But I think for the most part, when we think about sustainable success in any way, whether that's through your health, your fitness, your career, whatever, sustainable success takes time, consistency, effort, slow, steady pacing, because you need a strong, sturdy, secure foundation to sustain it. Now, if you are working towards something and you're putting all this effort in and you're not seeing immediate results, that can be really frustrating because you have to be in that in-between, right? That liminal space, that space where you're waiting for that thing to finally, potentially manifest into reality. And when we're in that liminal space, when we're in the waiting period, it is very triggering. It's very uncomfortable because you're faced in that time with the potential of failure. As you sit, as you wait, not seeing the results immediately that you're looking for, you're facing your own inadequacy over and over and over again. You're facing the potential that this thing won't work out. You're putting time and effort into it, and it might not happen. And the idea of putting so much time and effort into something that doesn't work out is incredibly devastating. But the tricky thing here is that you don't know if it will or won't work out. The only thing you can be sure of when you're doing anything is that you're doing what you believe is accurate for you to do right now based on the knowledge and information that you have. So if you've been putting time into research and learning and understanding and listening to other people who have done what you've done in, again, whatever way or capacity in your life, whatever you're trying to succeed at specifically, you've gathered all the information that you think or have seen is beneficial for other people. That's as accurate as it can be. And you're doing that. That's the only thing you can trust in yourself. You can't expect that this specific outcome will happen. And you don't know if it will. It might not. Or it might happen in a way that you don't expect it to, right? It might happen in a way that you were never thinking it could happen. It might not look at all like what you thought it was going to look like. And that's the toughest part about being in that liminal space, in that waiting period. And that's where I find that self-sabotage kicks in the most, because you don't want to face that. You don't want to feel that discomfort. And that is where, as I recognize my own patterns and habits, is where my inner child starts throwing a tantrum. They don't want to wait. They don't want to be in that space. They want it now, immediately, right away. And because they don't get it, they start destroying everything around them. And unfortunately, part of that destruction is maybe the life you've been trying to build, the success you've been trying to grow, the things you've been doing, putting together, building slowly. That now becomes collateral damage to this tantrum, which is so sad and disappointing because once you're out of that headspace, because tantrums pass, you will regret having done that because it was a moment of releasing that discomfort, right? It was a moment of giving yourself a bit of release, catharsis, in a moment when you should have just been kind of resilient and stuck with it. And I don't want to say should, because again, everyone's experience is different. But as I've learned from my own, in those moments, I look back and I think I should have just stayed still and dealt with that discomfort and, gritted my teeth and just dug my heels in and waited for it to pass, because it often does. And I have experience in my own life in other ways where I've done the exact same thing, have put effort, time, consistency into something, and have gritted my teeth, waited for it to pass, and it would happen. That thing would inevitably happen. And again, we can't guarantee anything. The only thing you can trust is the understanding, learning, research, whatever you put into doing something. And if you stay consistent with it, usually those things end up happening because there's no reason for them not to happen. But it's in that moment, it's when our inner children take control, when they take the wheel of our car, our vehicle that is our life, that they don't have that foresight, right? They don't have that deeper understanding. They're children. And we were once those children. And so that's why we can, I think, tap into it. And they think it's never going to happen. If it's not happening now, it's never going to happen. And that might be true, but we can't use that as the reason to destroy everything that we've been working towards. It's not a valid enough reason because we don't know if it's true or not. So to allow that to take control, to allow that to overwhelm us and overcome all our efforts and power is going to be, detrimental to us in the long run, because it will ruin everything we've been putting our effort into. It will ruin everything we've been working towards. And that's so disrespectful. And we look back, at least I do, and I look back and I notice those times when I've done that and I really resent myself for it. And all that does is ruin your self-trust. It shows you that you can't trust yourself. So the next time you try to do that thing again, you've chipped away at your self-trust a little bit more each time you do that. And you're less and less likely to trust yourself to continue doing it, right? To move forward, to be consistent, which makes you more likely to self-sabotage again because you don't trust yourself. And so you don't believe that this thing is possible. You don't believe that you can be consistent. And it's such a shame because all of that is in your power. The only thing that's in your power and in your control is your consistent effort and your ability to be resilient in that liminal waiting period of your process, whatever that looks like. So it's, I think, really important, again, just from my own experience. I'm not a therapist. These are things I've learned, I've worked through, I've had to understand, tweak, figure out for myself. It's really important to be our parents now, right? Our inner parental figures, and not let our inner children having a tantrum destroy everything that we've been working towards, because we won't be satisfied with that in the long run. We will resent ourselves for allowing that to happen. In the moment, it'll probably feel good. It'll be very cathartic. It'll be very, chaotic and exciting, but in the long run, it won't be. And we know that, and this is why I think it's so important to have a journal where you can write these things down, take note of them, recognize the last time you had this experience and you sabotaged everything and how much you resented yourself for it afterwards. So that you can look back and be like, yeah, I've done this before. I know what the result is. I've done it before. I'm not going to do it again because I know exactly what's going to happen. I can't do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result. I've already seen what happens. I've already seen how it feels to do this. Why would I put myself through that again? And when you're aware of that and you know that it hurts you to do that to yourself, it's so much harder to do it the second time around. And even if you do it again, knowing what you know, you feel even more resentful towards yourself. It's so much harder to keep doing it because you know what you're doing. It's so much easier when you're blissfully ignorant, right? So I think bringing awareness into your life is really important. Even if you can't quite change the pattern yet, being aware of it at the very least is the first and most important step. You have to see it. You have to understand what it feels like to do that to yourself again and why you wouldn't want to do it again. Even if you do, okay, I've done this thing again. It doesn't feel good. It feels as bad as it felt the last time. Do I want to do it again? Probably not, but it might happen again. And part of this is also having compassion and forgiveness for yourself, because you have to forgive yourself in order to be willing to try again. Life is all about trying again, right? Getting back up, doing it again, and trying your best to do it a little bit better the next time, if possible. But again, showing yourself forgiveness if you can't. But I think awareness is the first step, and recognizing that that part of you that is triggered to self-sabotage might not be your maybe authentic adult self, maybe your higher self, whatever you want to call it. It can be different for everyone. It might be your inner child, that version of you that is still very fearful, that feels very unsafe, uncomfortable, untrusting of the world. You as your adult self should be the one protecting that inner child now, making them see that they're safe. And the way to make them believe that they're safe with you is to not sabotage things, right? Not to put yourself in a position where you can't even trust yourself to stick with something, to create something for yourself without ruining it the moment it doesn't go your way. That's how you, I think, again, from my own experience, cultivate that strong relationship with yourself. But that takes time. It takes consistency, it takes patience, just like any other process. So even in your work through self-sabotage, you also have to experience that liminal space. You also have to experience that waiting period. It's all a practice in waiting and just sitting in that discomfort and gritting your teeth, because the discomfort is the point, right? You're trying to work out of old patterns and behaviors. That means you're going to be uncomfortable because it's not familiar. And in the moment, self-sabotaging, ruining everything might feel safer because it kind of gives you a sense of control a little bit. At least I can destroy everything. And that makes me feel like I have the power. Whereas waiting for something to happen that might never happen kind of feels like you're out of control, right? But in the long run, it makes you more out of control to destroy everything because you can't control your impulses. You can't control that child part of yourself that doesn't understand the long game in many cases, or doesn't understand the implications of those momentary actions. So I think it's really, really important to be mindful of this and aware of it. So I hope this gave you a different perspective on your self-sabotage and hopefully inspired you to do some inner child work, because that could be what's happening with you as well. And so having a conversation with your inner child, asking them what they need from you so that they don't throw those tantrums, and also understanding what you need to do in those moments when or if your inner child throws a tantrum like that, what you need to do to help them through it, to help them understand that, I get it, it's uncomfortable, it's painful to be here, it's scary, it's uncertain, and we're still going to have to sit through this. So what do you need from me during this time as we sit through this discomfort to feel somewhat okay? So yeah, I hope this was helpful. I hope it was informative. If you want to talk about this in more detail with me, explore these ideas a bit more, I offer sessions over on my website. I also have a Substack where I discuss these topics in more depth. I also offer journaling prompts where you can use them to work through it on your own. And I also have webinars that I offer about topics like these. I recently did a self-sabotage one. I'll probably run it again in the future. I have a perfectionism one coming up soon. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about that, feel free to check that out on my website as well. And for any of my other content over on TikTok, Instagram, feel free to follow me. And that's where I also post little snippets of my life as well, if you're interested. But other than that, thank you for listening, and I'll be back again soon with another episode.